Hi, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Time for Tea. I am Megan Pruitt-Kuhn. I am an author and a teacher from South Carolina, and I'm really excited that you've chosen to join me tonight. So I've been thinking about what to do with this vlog, and I have a couple of ideas. So first of all, we're going to be discussing books, and I've chosen the first book that we will discuss, and I will reveal it in just a minute. I posted some clues on social media, so some of you more astute readers may have already seen it and guessed what the book is, but we'll talk about more about that in a minute. I've also decided that every time we do a live stream together, I'll end with a poem that seems appropriate for the day or the time or the book or just sort of where we are. So I'll be doing that tonight as well. And I also want to take some time to tell you more about myself. So what we'll do is we'll have a weekly sort of book meetup where we'll talk about the book that we're reading. And if you start reading the book and you don't like it, that's cool. There are so many books in the world, and I used to be a person who would not quit a book. I would read that book to the end, and then I hit this book, and I read it for so long that I kept thinking of all the other books I could have been reading while I was reading this, and even when I finished it, I did not like it. So if you don't like the book I've chosen, I would say, first of all, give it a chance. Some of you were probably assigned this book in high school, maybe middle school, if you had like a really snazzy teacher. And so when I reveal it, you might be like, or like, no, or maybe, ooh, or, oh yeah, that one that I was supposed to read. Give it a chance. Give the book a chance. And if you read the first section and you don't like it, it's cool with me. Show up for the book discussions anyway, because anyone who's ever discussed books with me knows that book discussions turn into discussions of many, many things. So we'll do that once a week, and then I'll probably have a pop-up some other time during the week just to read some poetry. I had a lot of good feedback about the poetry I read the other evening, that at the end of the day, it's nice to have some poetry. I agree. So we'll either do that, or I'll talk about writing, and sort of my process and all that jazz. Or we'll just talk about what's going on and the role of creativity right now in this odd time in which we're living. So today I thought what we would do, before I reveal the first book that we'll read together, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about me. And I think the best way to do that is to introduce you to my library. So I'm going to take you on a little tour. I'll leave my tea here for right now. And let's take a peek at the library. All right, so one thing you should know about me, I love books. And I love to organize things. That doesn't mean that I'm a tidy person, because I'm not, and my husband would agree. But I love to organize things. So my books are all organized. So take a peek. All right. Also, I don't usually have knickknacks up here, but we are painting another room in the house. So I moved all the breakable objects up high so that my 5-year-old won't break everything in the house. So some of these little knickknacks, you'll see they're not normally there, but they're lovely children's artwork. Okay, so one thing that you'll notice with my library is that all the fiction books are alphabetized. So it starts with A up there and then goes down the rows. There are some books that are out of order because I tend to find them around the house where I've left them, or I acquire new ones. And so I just put them in place, and once a year I go back through and alphabetize them. And then I also put them into a file that I have that has a list of all my books so that I don't accidentally get duplicate copies, because that's happened before. I would point out, just because, this bit of seashells on the shelf. So my grandmother, Nana, passed away in December, and she's a really important figure in my life. She always encouraged me to be a reader. She bought me books like crazy. We would go to Barnes & Noble on special occasions like birthday, and she'd be like, fill the basket. And so she really supported that in me. And she also supported me as a writer. She always told me that I would be published one day, and she would introduce me to people as, here's my granddaughter, Megan. She's a writer. She writes books. And she would do that when I was in middle school. So when she passed away, one of the things that I kept in memory of her from her home was this jar of seashells. She loved the beach. She was from Florida. And so whenever I see seashells, I always think of her. So that's normally not in here, but it's just kind of like a little bonus today. So hi, Jennifer King, my friend. So all my fiction is alphabetized, and I like pretty much all books. So you'll see a lot of variety on the shelves. And there are also several books on here that I have planned for us to read together over this time. For example, I definitely want us to read some Hemingway at some point. He seems particularly relevant right now, but there is a book by Hemingway that I haven't read, which is kind of a shocker. And it's a famous one, so I would love to read that for the first time with you guys. Also, another section that holds a writer that we're going to read together is down in the M's, because we are absolutely 100% going to read some Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison is my absolute favorite contemporary author, and when people ask me, who do you think is the best author who's alive today? Who do you think will be taught in schools years from now? I always said Toni Morrison, and unfortunately we lost her not long ago, just within the past year. And but her books are just gorgeous, so we're going to read one of hers too. We'll read some J.K. Rowling. We're going to read some J.D. Salinger as well, and we'll read my book too, because, I mean, that'd be fun. Okay, so that's my fiction section. Then we turn to my nonfiction section, which is, of course, Dewey Decimal order. That's how I roll. They're all Dewey Decimals, and they're all entered in like an online card catalog that I have as well. And what I really want is one of those card catalog, like actual physical card catalogs like they had when I was like growing up. Oh, how I want one of those. So just throwing that out there in case anybody has one lying around. You just really want to get rid of it. I will take it. So those are all of my nonfiction, poetry, dramas there too. Have a religion section, history section. Got some cookbooks down there. Lots of Norton anthologies because I love my Norton anthologies. All right, but that's how I organize my books, and I have a lot of them. I have over 700 books in this house, which is probably a little extreme, but my friends like it because then they can borrow from me like the library. And yes, Eric, I am going to buy that as soon as I sign the movie deal. No kidding. Like, this will be one of the first things I buy is that card catalog. So in a future vlog, that's a weird word, in a future installment, I will show you my china cabinet of rare and special books. And it's just sort of dismantled right now. Oh, the 5-year-old has found me. Jack, do you want to say hi to people? I'm live. He just really wants his milk. Yeah, you can both say hi. Here are my children.
Hello.
That's Marie.
People in the world.
Yep, and that's the 5-year-old
Jack.
as well. Jack in his bathrobe. I'll get your milk in just a minute. Let Mommy finish what she's doing. Oh, gosh, and there's...
Welcome to our house.
So we've all been home. Yes, mom life. We've all been home for some time. And...
What the hell has giant boob run away?
I do. All right, I'll get you some milk in just a minute. Okay, so let's get to it then, because who knows what's going to happen next. Okay, so... the book that I thought we would start with, I gave some clues on social media, and I gave some clues earlier too. And the biggest clue, I think, is that it's a book that you were probably asked to read in school at some point, and I feel like most people probably didn't read it. So we're going to start with it. I actually got the idea because my dear friend Jessica, after the last episode, I like that. She emailed and said, here's this list of 100 books to read before you die from Goodreads. And there are plenty I haven't read. You want to choose from there? And so, yeah, sure. It's an awesome list. And so that's what I did. And without further ado, Eric, you are completely correct. We are going to read Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Now, I picked this for a couple of reasons. One, I've seen lots of memes about Lord of the Flies lately, and I'm very cleverly commenting on all of them. I think I'm clever. I don't know. Sometimes maybe. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think half the people in the world know what this is. And we should fix that. So, you were kidding about Lord of the Flies. No, this is actually what we're reading. And I also chose it because I haven't read it since I was assigned this book in high school. I feel like it was a summer reading book, which I'm not sure that's totally appropriate. At least it's not the books I read in the summer. But so I really want to revisit it because it's a classic. I remember I was on a trip overseas and we drove past a building and had a plaque on the side that said, William Golding was here, author of Lord of the Flies. And I was really excited. No one else on the bus seemed very excited about it. And the tour guide didn't even know what we were talking about. So yeah, I think I need to go back to this one. So we'll do this first, and I promise to give you something a little lighter after this. And here's how it's going to work. All right. So what we're going to do is read chapters 1 through 4. And so the next time that I go live, which I think will be next Saturday, the next time we go live, we'll discuss chapters 1 through 4. We're going to read it in chunks. I don't want to belabor the points, but I also want to make sure that if you're reading along, that you read some of the beginning, and I can also help you get into it if you're having a bit of a hard time with it or if you're unsure. So chapters 1 through 4 is what we'll discuss next weekend from Lord of the Flies by William Golding. I think some of you are going to read the Spark Notes. I'm trying to think of how I feel about that. I don't know. I always said to all my students that the Spark Notes are a review and that you're smarter than them. And you are. So just read it. Besides, it's not like there's going to be a quiz. I mean, you can just show up and sit there like some of you. I don't even know who's on here. It says there are 4 people. I'm not sure who you are, right? So it's cool. You can sit in the back of the classroom and not say anything and just listen to me blabber on about books. I mean, I think it can be fairly entertaining. I'm going to give it my best shot, right? So chapters 1 through 4 is what we'll read for next Saturday. I see that Eric has commented Piggy, and that makes me really happy that you remember that. That just makes my teacher heart proud. So we'll do that. So that's our first book, Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Let's see how it is all these years later for me. All right, so as promised, I wanted to end this brief session with some poems. Oh, hello, everybody. Now people are like, oh, it's me. I'm here. That's very good. Hello to you. I see former students, and that makes me really happy. And best friends from high school. My husband, evidently, as well. Oh, and one of my friends from church. What's it about? That's a really good question. I should have told you. Do I read the back? That seems really kind of bleh. All right, so what the book's about. I'm really glad you asked that, Lynn, because that would be helpful. So the book is about a group of boys from a boys' school who get stranded on an island with no adults and their attempts to survive there. It's really a commentary or an exploration about how we as humans behave when left to our own devices in creating our own way, our own civilization, and also has some great repercussion or commentary on, are we really civilized? Is humanity really civilized at its basic level? And it's told through the story of these young boys who are still at this developmental age. So really getting in there where they haven't had a whole lot of experience with the structures of society and government imposed upon them. So that's what it's about. But you can also read it on an entertainment level if you enjoy survival adventure things, which honestly, I don't love those. That's not my jam. I remember reading My Side of the Mountain in 3rd grade, and I'm pretty sure I really disliked that book. Now, I own the book now. Maybe we should read that too. I do want to read some books that I didn't like the first time through and give them another chance with you. So I might have to read that one. Hold on. Much better. So you can read it if you like that, just for entertainment value, or you can dig deeper with all the meaning and commentary, which is my jam. So that's what I'll be doing. So I'm really glad you asked that. Oh, the Crucible. There's another one that people are supposed to read and often do not. Oh my gosh, Eric, did you read anything in high school? He's listing all the books that he didn't read. Actually, I've considered reading The Scarlet Letter because I feel like that is probably the number one book that people are assigned to read in high school and don't read. And I think if I took a poll, that would be it. So I've considered that one because I actually really like that book. And also I considered Gatsby because that's another one that everyone is assigned to read in high school, but I don't know. And I feel like if you didn't read Gatsby, you probably didn't read any other books in high school. So that's what Lord of the Flies is about. Other questions? I should leave time for questions. I want it to be a conversation. Oh, Eric read all of them except for Les Miserables. I'm so proud of you, and I don't blame you on Les Miserables. Like, I remember it was like a truncated version. I remember being mad because your class got to read that and mine did not. But Les Miserables is hefty, man, and it's deep. And honestly, I've owned it for, how old am I? 40? I've probably owned Les Miserables for almost 30 years, and I've started it about 15 times, and I've never finished it. In fact, I think I've gotten a third of the way through. There's just a lot about that priest and the candlesticks. So, yes, I remember helping you write your essay because I had seen the musical so much I could at least talk about it. I did know every word of the musical, so, But yes, I guess I shouldn't admit that I did that as a teacher. But I don't teach high school anymore, so it's fine. Yes, Caroline, I did assign you the Crucible, and then I would give that horrible Crucible quiz on the first day of school that was so terribly difficult. Yep, that was good times. Good times. That was a thing of legend, actually. I had one student one year who bombed that quiz, and he put it in the front see-through pocket of his binder for the rest of the year. Every time he came in class, he'd set it out on his desk. I thought about sending him a blank copy of it in college, and then I never did. And now he's graduating, I think. Oh, wait, I might have one more year. I think I have one more year to do that. It's happening. Of course, he's probably listening. No, actually, he's probably not. He's not one of the 4. Other questions? Or questions about me? The King Arthur book. Oh, yes, The Once and Future King. Oh, thank you, Caroline. I love The Once and Future King. I have it somewhere on this particular shelf. It's by T.H. White, so it should be somewhere here toward the... Oh, yep, here it is. This will bring it back. The Once and Future King. That was a long book they had us read. I actually remember very much liking it, but this is another one I've gone back to since high school and I haven't finished it again. Cliff Notes are still around, but people have really moved on to Spark Notes. I think you can find Cliff Notes online mostly now, but I didn't rely on Cliff Notes very much until I went to graduate school. And when I was in graduate school getting my master's in English, we had our final exam was written. We had a list of 10 books, and then we just wrote essays on them for hours and hours. And a couple of those books were extraordinarily challenging for me. And so I bought the Cliff Notes, and I felt like dirty doing it, but I did it anyway. My favorite summer read for school. Ooh. We read some rough ones, man. We read A Farewell to Arms, which I love Hemingway, but geez, that's a sad book to finish when you're lying on the beach. And then if it starts raining, then it's even worse. That's like such a geeky joke. We read The Metamorphosis, where Gregor Samsa turns into a beetle. That was also strange for summer reading. What did I read for summer reading that I really enjoyed?
The book that you spent?
I don't know. I don't know what my favorite one was that I read for school. Maybe Brave New World. I did very much like Brave New World. That's a good one. Let's see. Oh, the scones in my Instagram post, right? So my kids and I had a tea party yesterday because, we're all sitting at home and I love a good theme. So I decided to do some theme meals in our house. So the first one we decided we had to do was tea. And by we decided, I mean that I decided because I was in Publix. Oh, my daughter is saying that she came up with it's true. We were taking out all of our china for Easter. And this is my Nana's china too. And I was taking out some plates and my daughter was helping me. And I turned to her and I said, do you know what we should have? And she goes, a tea party. And I was like, yes. And since we both that's her. And since we both said it at the same time, it had to happen. So I went to Publix with my mask, 6 feet apart, first thing in the morning when the store is still vaguely clean. And I bought some little petit fours and scones, and then we made some cucumber sandwiches. We made them with some with butter and some with cream cheese because people have very different ideas of how that should go. So that was a treat. So maybe we could have a virtual tea party sometime. It would give you an excuse to buy little cakes. I don't know if anyone's going to argue with that. Let's see. How many books do you think you have read total? Okay, so funny thing, I keep a book diary where I write down all the books that I've read. And I used to keep it in actual book form. In fact, I'll have to bring one sometime to one of these. And I would write down the name of the book, the author, the date I finished it, a synopsis, like the meaning of the book, favorite quotes, all that. And then my review sort of, and I kept them all in this spiral bound journal for years. And now I've moved online to Goodreads. I actually have an author page on Goodreads too, which is wild. Maddie says hi to you. Maddie Starks.
Hi, Maddie.
And so now I keep it on Goodreads, and I can't remember what the count is. I'll have to look it up, but I've read 11 books since we've been in quarantine. I'm a really fast reader, which can kind of be a curse sometimes because I'm also a really good daydreamer, and I'm one of those people who will read several pages, and then I'm like, wait, I was somewhere else accepting my Pulitzer Prize. Let's come back to that. So I'll get back to you on the count, but I think it's fairly astronomical. I always have a book going. When I go to the beach in the summer, I always take 10 books with me because my 10 books in the week is always the goal. I don't always meet it, but that's always the goal. My favorite recent young dystopian book. Oof. Oh, let's see. I mean, I think I guess I have to go with The Hunger Games because I read the whole series. I read Divergent, loved Divergent, and then for no reason I can explain, I didn't read the others. I should probably get on that. But, I loved The Hunger Games. I think it's so smart. I think it's a smart commentary. I think that it's really well written and developed. I had some issues with the final book. Loved the second one. But I thought that book was written just right. Like for young adults, but we can all read them. I would say that one of my favorite dystopian books, period, that's not young adult, is World War Z. And if you've seen the movie, this is not the same. The book is 1,000 times better. But World War Z, the book, which really, the movie is the same in title only. The book, I think, is a really smart commentary on international relations and our country's relationship to other countries and sort of the dynamics in the global community. And I think that is so smart. World War Z, I could read again and again, and I feel like I'd get something new from it every time. Oh, Eric, I'm glad you agree with me. But yes. So yeah, that's a dystopian book that I really love. And I thought about picking like a really dystopian book for our first book together. But then I thought, well, seeing as we're sort of living a lot of things that are in dystopian fiction, maybe not this time. Maybe we'll do something a little. So I did pick something a little gritty, but maybe not dystopian right now. We'll save that till we're back into whatever the new normal routine's going to be. So after we finish this first book, Lord of the Flies, perhaps we will read, is it too like me to say we can read my book next, I would just say that we could read my book next just because it's light and happy and, like something maybe we all need right now. So you can tell me, though, you can be totally honest and be like, that's super self-serving, girl, and we'll do something else. But that might be a good one to read in a couple weeks after we finish Lord of the Flies, just for a different, like a change of pace and a change of tone. I also noticed that my first grade teacher is on here, Mrs. Guthrie, and that makes me so incredibly happy. She's wonderful. I have a very distinct memory from her class of I made a bird's nest, as first graders would, out of lots of pine needles and some other sticks that I found on the playground. And I brought it inside to her and to our teacher's aide, and they acted like it was the greatest thing in the world, and I just loved it, and it made me so happy. And now that I'm an adult, I love that even more, because I basically brought a bunch of bug-infested plant stuff into the room. So thank you for everything. A list of questions to submit prior. Oh, that's awesome. Yes. So what we'll do, I'll make a post as well before the next time we go live, and to see if you have questions about the book or just questions in general too, because I love talking, and I love talking about writing, and I have a lot to say about the role that theater has also played in me being a writer and a teacher too, because that's a really important part of my personal story. So we'll definitely talk about that as well. And what I'll do too is I'll make some videos that I'll post of readings from Lord of the Flies. If you're more of a listener, then I'll do at least some reading of the beginning to kind of help you get into it a little bit too. I've been saying a whole lot. It's because ideas are now flowing. I just need people. Don't we all just need some people right now, though? It's so great to interact with you guys. So that's what I'll do. I'll make a video of me reading the beginning of Lord of the Flies so that can help read you in. And then we'll see if you want me to keep reading out loud. In next week, we'll talk about the first section, which would be chapters 1 through 4. If you don't read it, it's cool. You can come join us anyway. And also, I said I was going to do something else. I'm going to figure out how many books I've read thus far in my life. Right now, I am reading, in case you're curious, I just finished a book called A Word for Love. And it's about a woman who goes to Syria to read this ancient text that's supposed to explore the definition of love. But when she gets there, she ends up involved with a family who's politically rebellious and so in trouble that way. She ends up as part of this, as like the go-between in this forbidden relationship. She ends up exploring love herself. It turns out to be quite complicated, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I'm pretty brutal, to be honest. Like if it gets 5 stars from me, it basically changed my life forever. And there are very few that get 5 stars. If you go to my blog, which is meganpruittcoon.blogspot.com, I haven't posted since January because life has been redonkulous. But in January, I posted my top books from last year, and most of those got 5 stars from me. I think maybe 8 or 9 out of the 10. So you can see there. But I give it 3 out of 5 stars. It was a good read, but I thought that it had some areas that I thought could be a little tighter. So, and then I decided right now, so I love memoirs and autobiographies, and I read them alphabetically. So a few years ago, I started with John Adams, A, and I am currently on L, and my daughter and I were watching Spring Baking Championship on the Food Network, and LaToya Jackson was one of the celebrity contestants.
Obsessed.
And so my daughter was obsessed with LaToya Jackson.
Not
LaToya
Jackson, Spring Baking Championship.
With LaToya too. Let's be fair. And so I got her book called Starting Over. Her first book was very much manipulated by an abusive first husband. This is a book about that relationship. So that's what I'm reading right now. And Eric's reading A Discovery of Witches. I loved that series. I never thought I was a fantasy person until I read Harry Potter. I'll just have to go on and on about Harry Potter at some point because that was kind of a game changer for me. And now I don't love all fantasy, and I still struggle with science fiction, although there are a couple of writers I really like in science fiction. But A Discovery of Witches, oh, I loved that. I was so in love with the main character, Matthew. Like, I blush just even thinking about it. So, loved that series. I loved it so much. Okay, I'm going to end today with a poem. I chose a book from a book. I'm going to read you a book now. Hope you're all, like, tucked in with your tea, like, ready to go. And maybe some snacks, because that's going to take a while. So, I got my Oxford Book of American Verse off the shelf. My daughter is laughing at me.
Well, it's because I thought you were going to read the book when you first said it.
She thought I was going to read the book. Yeah, you guys ready? Chapter 1. Just kidding. So I wanted to read a book, oh my gosh, there I go again. I wanted to read a poem for you by Carl Sandburg. So where I live in South Carolina is very close to Carl Sandburg's winter home. It's in Flat Rock, North Carolina, which is this amazing little village in the mountains. It's very artistic. And you can go and visit Carl Sandburg's house, which I've done on several occasions. It's a beautiful property, beautiful lake, and there are lots of goats, and you can go in and pet the goats. And let me just tell you, man, and it's free to go in and pet the goats.
I love the
It's therapeutic to go in there and pet those goats. And once when I was there with some several students who have become friends over the years, so I know one of them at least is going to watch this, Amani, and we were there, and there was a baby goat named Nancy. Is there a better name for a baby goat? I don't think so. And Nancy was super tiny, and she had on this pink sweater. And the park ranger was like, come on over here, Nancy's going to come out of the barn. And Nancy, the tiny baby goat in a pink sweater, came leaping out of the barn, but baby goats leap sideways. So she was like sideways leaping out of the barn. It was about the cutest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. That, and when I took my 5-year-old and he went through the entire pasture of goats, hugging each one and saying, I love you, goat. Like, put his arms around the goat, head on the goat. I love you, goat. You are eating, goat. Oh, I love that place. It's an inspirational place. It's really beautiful. You can go and sit on Carl Sandburg's writing rock where he would put his chair and write poetry. It's a lovely place. I recommend when this quarantine is over, when we're allowed to go outside beyond our own homes, that you find a writer's home nearby and go and visit it. Writers look for places of peace and inspiration, and we need that right now. And if you go to one of these places, I guarantee you will find it. If it's a Margaret Mitchell's house in the middle of Atlanta, or actually if you're in Atlanta, I'd suggest Joel Chandler Harris's house. There's a complicated story there. We'll talk about Joel Chandler Harris one day too, but I recommend his house. It's called the Wren's Nest if you're in the Atlanta area. There's an amazing tour guide there who has been there for years and years. She tells personal stories about the family, and it's really it's a fascinating place. If you're in the Carolinas, then certainly Carl Sandburg's house in Flat Rock is a great place to go. But you could also go to the Grove Park Inn, which is this beautiful deluxe hotel in Asheville. But F. Scott Fitzgerald stayed there when his wife Zelda was in the mental hospital in Asheville, and he wrote part of one of his novels there. Actually, I think the whole novel. And so you can go see a recreation of some items that were in his room and a couple that were actually there. So that's a great one. Anyway, wherever you are, let me know, and I will recommend somewhere where you can go to have that kind of writer experience, where you can really see why someone was inspired to write as they did. There's actually a great book about that, which is probably on my shelf as well. It's called Novel Destinations, and it's like a whole collection of them. When I was in England about a year ago, actually, I was like determined to find every Oscar Wilde spot because we'll get to him at some point too, but I have a literary family that I'll tell you about, and he's that uncle, and I love him. Okay, I'll stop talking now because I've been talking for quite some time, and I want to finish by reading you a poem. So see how I got sidetracked? That's going to happen a lot. So the poem is by Carl Sandburg, and it's called The People Will Live On. And I chose this because I think it's a great poem for where we are right now. So here's The People Will Live On by Carl Sandburg. The people will live on. The learning and blundering people will live on. They will be tricked and sold and again sold and go back to the nourishing earth for root holds. The people so peculiar in renewal and comeback, you can't laugh off their capacity to take it. The mammoth rests between his cyclonic dramas. The people so often sleepy, weary, enigmatic, is a vast huddle with many units saying, I earn my living, I make enough to get by, and it takes all my time. If I had more time, I could do more for myself and maybe for others. I could read and study and talk things over and find out about things. It takes time. I wish I had the time. The people is a tragic and comic two-face, hero and hoodlum, phantom and gorilla twisting to moan with a gargoyle mouth. They buy me and sell me. It's a game. Sometime I'll break loose. Once having marched over the margins of animal necessity, over the grim line of sheer subsistence, then man came to the deeper rituals of his bones, to the lights lighter than any bones, to the time for thinking things over, to the dance, the song, the story, or the hours given over to dreaming, once having so marched. Between the finite limitations of the five senses and the endless yearnings of man for the beyond, the people hold to the humdrum bidding of work and food while reaching out when it comes their way for lights beyond the prison of the five senses, for keepsakes lasting beyond any hunger or death. This reaching is alive. The panderers and liars have violated and smutted it, yet this reaching is alive yet for lights and keepsakes. The people know the salt of the sea and the strength of the winds lashing the corners of the earth. The people take the earth as a tomb of rest and a cradle of hope. Who else speaks for the family of man? They are in tune and step with constellations of universal law. The people is a polychrome, a spectrum, and a prism held in a moving monolith, a console organ of changing themes, a clavilex of color poems wherein the sea offers fog and the fog moves off in rain and the Labrador sunset shortens to a nocturne of clear stars, serene over the shot spray of northern lights. The steel mill sky is alive. The fire breaks wide and zigzag shot on a gunmetal gloaming. Man is a long time coming. Man will yet win. Brother may yet line up with brother. This old anvil laughs at many broken hammers. There are men who can't be bought. The fireborn are at home in fire. The stars make no noise. You can't hinder the wind from blowing. Time is a great teacher. Who can live without hope? In the darkness, with a great bundle of grief, the people march. In the night, and overhead a shovel of stars for keeps, the people march. Where to? What next? And I chose this poem because there were a couple lines that really stood out to me for this day and this place where we are. As I discussed in my last video with Mary Oliver, structure means a lot for me. Like, I love to see a poem. I love to hear people reading poetry, but I really love to see the poem because those choices matter. All the choices in a poem matter. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, and don't shortchange the poem by thinking otherwise. Every choice matters. I can say that as a writer. And this one, Carl Sandburg uses a lot of free verse. There's a famous story, and I don't even know if it's true, that Robert Frost said that Carl Sandburg's poetry was like playing tennis without a net, because Robert Frost very much enjoyed blank verse and very structured forms of poetry. And Carl Sandburg, not so much, my friend. So, but the structures he uses go along with the themes of his poems and what he's exploring, and his variety and structure I just love. He goes from, it looks like a list, and then it'll be more fleshed out, and that matters. So I chose this poem because of these lines. Let me leave you with this at the end. And because it's about people sitting and thinking that they're going so fast through life, they wish they had time. And right now, a lot of us, not everyone, there are people struggling very mightily right now, but a lot of us have the time that we always say, I wish I had time for this, I wish I had time for that. And don't get me wrong, I'm working from home. I'm working full-time job from home, but there's something quieter about this time right now. And maybe we should take advantage of that. So here are the lines I want to leave you with. Time is a great teacher. Who can live without hope? And in the night and overhead a shovel of stars for keeps, the people march. Where to? What next? So I'll see you next week. I'll probably see you before. I'll do a drop-in just to probably read some poetry or I don't know, something like that. But next Saturday, and I'll announce a time later. I'd like to shoot for the same time, 7:30, but I have kids, so we'll just see. But I'll let you know in advance. So, and then we'll talk about chapters 1 through 4 of Lord of the Flies. And feel free to come, like I said, even if you don't read, and just to hang out and be with some people. Thanks so much for coming. It means a lot to me. I hope you guys have a beautiful evening, and I'll see you next time for the next episode of Time for Tea. Bye, you guys.